up to or more than 100 aerial refuelers to essentially assist in this, what appears to be a massive buildup of both naval power and air power. So how do you think this can be fought? Because this won't be a limited war, and I think the Iranians ruled out the possibility of just a limited strike as well. So how do you see this war? Well, I know you're not part of the war planning on this one, but how do you think the war planning is being played out?
I don't know the various options that are being presented to President Trump. Politicians, as you know, historically always want to be a little bit pregnant. Most politicians don't want to bring the child to term. And by that, I mean they're looking for something short of what they fear most, which is all-out war. And so I'm sure he's being presented with a couple of limited options because politicians like to signal as opposed to do anything. You know, when we were moving towards the Kosovo air campaign back in 1998, the politicians in Brussels were floating ideas along the lines of a demonstration strike to show the Serbs that we're serious. And of course, this was ridiculous. You know, you're going to fire cruise missiles at a target where there are no people, there's no installation to speak of, and tell everybody to look at the target and then watch an explosion. And they believed that this might avoid a bombing campaign against the Serbs. Of course, that eventually was thrown out. But they continued to try and tinker, and ultimately we miscalculated. I say we, I'm talking about Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe, on the numbers of aircraft and munitions that would be required. And so the air campaign being over within 2 weeks lasted 78 days. I think you have a similar phenomenon here. You're talking now not about 8 million people in Kosovo and Serbia. You're talking about 90 to 93 million people inside Iran, which is the size of Western Europe. And the population centers are now actively covered by various air defense systems. Now, will all these air defense systems work very well? I don't know. I would assume that they will do better than they did the last time. But the challenge for us, as I mentioned earlier, is twofold. First of all, you have to sustain yourself in a region where right now almost everyone is telling us to get out of their country. I mean, stop and consider this for a minute. Jordan is allowing us to occupy bases in the western part of the country, 2 of them. And there are large numbers of aircraft sitting on the ground there. Otherwise, we are largely dependent upon air bases outside of the region. That's a huge problem because instead of just flying back and forth within relatively close proximity to Iran, which is what we did last time, this time, as you pointed out, we're going hundreds of miles. Well, to do that, you have to have almost an inexhaustible supply of air refuelers, and these have to rotate. You've got to have air refuelers on station. Then you have to have air refuelers on their way and air refuelers on their way back so that they can be replenished and so forth. Right now, it looks like we're planning to operate in Iraqi airspace. Now, the Iraqis are not supporting us, and they're violently opposed to any war with Iran. I don't know what that means. Does that mean that we could face hostility from Iraq in that airspace? Are we constrained by it? I mean, people have been talking about, well, you can have attacks from the north in Iran, attacks from the south. Well, if you get out of the south, you're flying almost 1,000 miles to reach the targets that you're trying to hit. That's enormously difficult. Just recently, within the last 24 hours, a friend who's on the ground over there said, you know, we're being